We are about to embark upon a series of strange and exciting, dangerous adventures. Adventures that will lead us to all parts of the world.
Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Days the Forge. This is one of the prelude books to Dark Knight's Metal. Now this is the first of the books to come out. It starts off with journal entries by Hawkman, Carter Hall. The discovery of... Then we immediately jump right into an island in the Bermuda Triangle where Batman is climbing through molten lava in a giant mech suit to rescue a scientist who has some information for him, and Aquaman has to save him. Then we jump over to Mogo, home of the Green Lanterns, where Ganthet is sending Hal Jordan on a super secret mission that he can't tell anyone about. No fellow Lanterns, no Earthmen, nothing. And that super secret mission is underneath Wayne Manor in the Batcave. He gets down there and is promptly attacked by Duke Thomas, who is wearing some goofy yellow suit. I think he's known as the Signal. Well, there's a secret door that is a hidden chamber inside of the Batcave. But before we get to that, we have to have previews of the upcoming series, like the Immortal Men with Vandal Savage. We get some more Hawkman talking, and then we jump to a nightmare that Carter was having about a giant statue before we go to the Lunar Batcave. This book is all over the place. The Lunar Batcave, which is a new one for everyone, I think, has Batman uploading the information he got from the scientist and meeting up with Mr. Terrific, who was mentioned to be in another universe. Well, they're comparing notes about some super secret thing they're looking into, and we learn that Plastic Man is shaped like an egg and trapped in a room for some reason. Then we're back at the Batcave with Hal Jordan and Duke, and they're hearing a mysterious voice talking to them from somewhere inside this chamber. There's references to the Court of Owls, and we see some different items. We see Dr. Fate's helmet, Aquaman's trident, what looks like Wonder Woman's gauntlets, and we get a glimpse of Batman and the Outsiders on like a projection, and there's some weird shimmering green metal, which I think is pronounced as Dionysium. So they follow this voice. Green Lantern's ring is acting all weird. Says there's an anomaly detected, but they get to two big metal double doors as they're trying to figure out who this is. Meanwhile, Hawkman's journal is warning people not to look into this because it's very terrifying. So hopefully that means we're getting Hawkman back. Meanwhile, Batman has left the moon and is now at the Fortress of Solitude, bothering Clark to get into a secret chamber that he had built and that Clark was never supposed to look into, but they threw the key into the sun, so that means they have to recruit Mr. Miracle. Mr. Miracle has to go in and unlock the door, and he does, but he is not happy by what he saw in that chamber, and he obviously knows whatever this machine is that was locked in there. He recognizes it. He even warns Batman that he should turn back, and Batman just kind of ignores him, and we see this giant machine. But we are definitely getting some hints of the multiverse in here, and we have a surprise Batman villain in the Batcave, in a secret chamber in the Batcave, helping Batman by scrawling numbers all over a wall. This is a very interesting book. It's got something to do with nth metal, and there's a lot going on. As we've learned, this does tie into other books, like The Immortal Men, which is coming out. The Terrifics has Plastic Man and Mr. Terrific in it, and there are other references in here. So there's a lot going on in this issue. It's a good lead up, and since these have actually been out for a while now, I'm just finally getting around to reading them. It's nice to be able to jump right into the next issue, but they are going to be collected in trade paperback format, and there is a digital code in these, which I don't know how long they're good for, but if you have like the app, you can redeem it and get a free digital copy. Overall, the art was a little hit and miss for me. Some of it was great, some of it was just garbage. Some of this looks really phoned in, but others really good. There's some very recognizable people in here. Jim Lee, Andy Kubert, John Romita Jr., although I think Romita Jr.'s work was a little subpar for him. But overall, yeah, there's Klaus Janson, Scott Williams. Yeah, there's a lot of popular people here. This is written by Scott Snyder and James Tinian the Fourth. I think this was really cool. It really made me interested in it in reading the next issue, which is Dark Days the Casting, which we will be looking at probably tomorrow. So yeah, definitely check it out. If you're a Batman fan or a Justice League fan, I think there's something here for you. If you're an old school JSA fan, you might get a little something out of it too, because there's a lot of Hawkman references in here, and I'm really intrigued to see where it goes. So aside from some questionably to all the way bad art, there is some good art in here, and the story is enough to kind of salvage it for me. So I didn't feel ripped off with my $5. But that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Days the Casting. This is a one-shot prelude to Metal, follows the Forge. And we start off with more of Hawkman's journal, talking about how he brought together a bunch of immortals, like Ra's al Ghul, a certain wizard whose name can turn teenagers into flying men with giant yellow lightning bolts on their chest. And he's talking about how they were all researching it, but this wizard seemed to actually know a little bit more than most. Then we cut over to Greece, where Batman is wearing some armor and fighting a very scary monster, Amphitryon. Wonder Woman shows up to kind of bail him out. He was hoping to talk to one of the gods, but the gods are gone, and they apparently abandoned Earth knowing that there was some sort of war coming. A dark war, a crisis, if you will. And Wonder Woman explains that she had a vision that she was supposed to give Bruce the Sunblade of Apollo, and she does. That is when we go back to the Batcave, where Hal Jordan and Duke Thomas are talking to the Joker, and the Joker is actually pretty sane here. He's still the Joker, but he's more sane than usual. And there is a force barrier in between them, so the Joker wasn't just running loose. And the Joker says that, well, he makes fun of Duke, which, come on, Duke's kind of a joke. But he refers to him as a signal. It turns out that there is something about certain people, and he kind of pokes at Duke enough to get him to disrupt the force field blocking them, and he does manage to get out of the force field, but not after we learn that after Joker had apparently cut his face off, a story I missed because I've been out of comics for so long. After he was trying to kill this family and rekindle the flame of crazy, I guess, in his joy for his job, the Joker actually fell into some kind of pit, which looks like a Lazarus pit, and it healed his wounds and restored his face. Well, he also saw an engraving on the wall of a bat, and apparently Joker's piecing things together. He says Crazy Quilt knew, the Owls knew, there were other people that knew. It was a conspiracy, pieces, and I'm quoting here, pieces planted for generations. Birds had become bats, light became dark, sanity had become insanity. So that's when the Joker manages to get out. A protocol is activated in the Batcave, known as Smile Protocol, and it cuts power to Subcave Alpha, which implies there are other subcaves, by the way. And the Joker does say that this has all happened before. Then we go back to Carter Hall's journal, where he is also standing outside of a green pit, where there's a different inscription of a bat-like creature. We learn a little bit more. We learn that there was some sort of war with these bat-like creatures and some birds, and apparently the birds are at war with the bats. It's all very symbolic. Of course, the Lazarus Pit has apparently got this metal in it, so whatever nth metal is apparently shows up in Lazarus Pits too. Well, Hawkman wanted to explore more, and we see the Blackhawks. We see the Challengers of the Unknown at Challenger Mountain, which they promptly blow up. And that's when Hawkman gets a glimpse of these giant eyes and real creepy looking monster thing. And he says, eyes waiting in the dark, waiting for something or someone. And then we cut back over to Batman, who runs into Dubalex at a secret Catamus base, and he collapses. He may be dead, I don't know. And who should come out of the steamy shadows but Talia al Ghul, who trades Batman the Sunblade for a dagger that we had seen earlier in the issue from this wizard. And she says it carries a piece of great power, the power of Shazam. So hopefully they're bringing Shazam and Captain Marvel and the rest of the Marvel family back into the DC universe. That would be awesome. Well, the Joker promptly goes about beating the crap out of one of Batman's machines. Of course, Hal Jordan and Duke try and stop him, but Hal's ring isn't working. And the Joker even says, this isn't funny. Yeah, it's I'm trying not to ruin too much because it is a really amazing story. They're tying a lot of things together, like the Lazarus Pit, these immortals like Carter Hall and Vandal Savage and Ra's al Ghul, and they even say that there is a test at the Gotham Mercy Hospital, the Joker says this, that sends out a flag if certain trace amounts of metal are detected in a blood sample. It's not metal, it's a kind of metal toxicity, but it's not mercury or iron. When you fill out the file, there are several letters to denote this, and it's meta. META. So somehow metahumans are actually involved with this metal on some sort of like almost primal level because it's in their actual DNA. Hal Jordan ends up swiping one of the bat planes or bat wings and tries to hold Joker. We find out that Carter Hall went through a portal and gave his journal to someone he trusted, and then he disappeared. I don't know if this is going to relate to bringing members of the JSA back, but I'm looking forward to seeing Hawkman back in the Prime Universe. Well, Joker, of course, escapes, and Batman shows up right around that time, and he is not happy. And Green Lantern tries to lecture him about, keeping people locked in his basement and stuff like that. And Batman says, well, why do a bunch of intergalactic peacekeepers send you here with the most powerful weapon in the universe, the Green Lantern ring, on some backwater planet to destroy a little archaeological venture? Of course, there's no good answer to that one. When Batman shows them the dagger, it makes something go crazy in the kid, and Hal lets him put on a Green Lantern ring. Batman hooks a machine up that is constructed with this ring, but he doesn't see anything. He's supposed to get some kind of vision. And then we learn that deep in the bowels of the earth, 3,000 miles below Gotham City, this cult wearing these bat-like robes see the vision that he was supposed to see, and it's of a group of evil Justice League looking people with Batman ears. It says the Dark Knights are coming, and with them the true father of Batman. So that is most likely a reference to the Bat God that was brought up in some Detective Comics stories or Batman stories a while back. I have got to read issue 1. Hopefully I will have that up tomorrow or very soon at least. But this was a great issue. They really set up everything. They tie a lot in. They bring a lot of things together in this, like the metahumans, their origins are finally kind of explaining that, why there's so many people with superpowers. Well, if it has something to do with this strange metal being on Earth, its effects on humanity, then that kind of makes sense. Plus it ties in that Green Lantern's ring is afraid of this, so the Lanterns probably know something, and it also ties into the disappearance of Hawkman, the origins of the immortal characters like Ra's al Ghul, Phantom Stranger, stuff like that. So there's a lot going on, and they reference a lot of people, like the disappearance of the Challengers, the Blackhawks, which I'm real glad to see those guys again, and several other groups. So obviously there's a lot going on here that is tying a lot of things together. So I'm excited to see how they do that and if they can pull it off. And obviously this does lead into the launch of several new titles that they've done, such as the Terrifics and the Immortal Men, Damage, Brimstone, and several others. So I'm glad to see how that plays out, and I'm looking forward to reading issue 1. I know this series is going to wrap up near the end of this month, so I want to get these all recorded before that issue comes out so we can kind of see the whole thing unwinding and you have a chance to pick up the issues. But that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today I just read Dark Knight's Metal issue 1. Now very often when I read comics I don't have a lot of fun reading them anymore. They're disappointing and boring, mostly boring, or they're poorly written or have a good idea but poor execution. This actually restored my faith in the comic industry. I thought it was a lot of fun. It wasn't super deep, it wasn't some hardcore action book. It tells a fun story, and we're learning a little bit more about what's going on. It starts with the Justice League being held by Mongol on a new war world. Well, he was supposed to be locked up, but he managed to get away. And he kidnapped the Toyman, Mr. Hero, the newer Toyman, and forced him to build different challenges to fight the Justice League. And the Justice League are all wearing pieces of armor that dampen their powers. They are being attacked by these new creatures, and he calls them Fulcum Abominus, Mongol loves the name. But Batman figures out what's going on. I'm not going to ruin it for you, because it's the type of silliness that you would expect somebody named the Toy Man to come up with to help in his own freedom and escape. So it was actually, I thought it was silly, but it was fun silly, not stupid silly. The Justice League is heading back to Earth, and somebody dropped a mountain in the middle of Gotham City. Well, if you read the first two preludes, you know that this is Challenger Mountain. We see the big symbol of an hourglass. Well, there's other things hidden throughout the book, little references to a lot of older stuff that we haven't seen in several years. Blackhawks, we really haven't seen them in action, and we see Red Tornado in Challenger Mountain, so we know what happened to him. And the Blackhawks are led by Kendra Saunders, who used to be Hawkgirl in the JSA, but they've retconned a lot of that. So then we go to Black Hawk Island in the South Pacific, which is awesome. Haven't seen that in ages. And that was the island that Hawkman was on with Challenger Mountain. So that she's telling them what happened to Hawkman, and she's talking about the nth metal. We see a glimpse of, I believe that was a Starman, but I'm not sure. We see that kid, and we see the old Blackhawk team, which is awesome. We see the Metal Men and Red Tornado in the background, and we learn a little bit more about the multiverse with 52 alternate realities, and we got a little bit of a map there. We can see New Genesis, we can see the Source Wall, the Monitor Sphere, and the Bleed, the Rock of Eternity, stuff like that. And then she describes a dark multiverse that kind of mirrors our own, and she tells them that Batman is the source of this creature that's trying to get into our world. His name is Barbados. I think that's how it's pronounced. Well, then we have Red Tornado being reactivated and trying to start a fight, mostly because he's upset they opened the door. Then Green Lantern puts the kibosh on it while Batman makes his escape. He learned what he wanted, and he swiped a fragment of pure nth metal. And we see other people starting to awaken. We see Dr. Fate, we see the egg that is Plastic Man, and we see, I think that's a member of the Doom Patrol, or the Metal Men, I'm not sure which, probably the Metal Men. Then Batman's in the Batcave analyzing this substance. There's various things going on, and he finds Carter Hall's journal hidden in his own house. And who should show up but the Sandman? I mean, the Neil Gaiman Sandman. And that's where the issue kind of ends. It was just a fun read. I had a great time reading this. Every page was just good old style action adventure and intrigue. I highly recommend this book. It was a lot of fun. The art was good. The story was pretty fantastic. They're really kind of try and bring a lot of the older stuff back and tie things together in this, new version of the multiverse that they've got. So if you're an old-time fan of like Silver Age characters or Golden Age characters like the Blackhawks and Hawkman and the JSA, I think a lot of that's going to be brought back into the main universe. So it should be pretty interesting. So I'm excited to read issue 2. Hopefully I'll have that one done tomorrow. But I can't recommend getting this one enough. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. And we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Knight's Metal Issue 2 from Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo. Now we pick up with the Justice League and pretty much all their friends hunting for Batman. They manage to track him to the Amazon, or they think they do, and there's a whole bunch of people dressed like Batman, and they have to try and catch him to recover the nth metal, but it turns out to be a very clever ruse to lure them into a trap, as it were. And it's actually the Batman family, Batwing, Red Hood, Batwoman, Batgirl, Nightwing, etc., luring them in with these pouches that they're carrying that contain something called the Terrible Green Beatdown, which is when they realize that they have wandered into the Parliament of Trees, which makes Swamp Thing very unhappy. So while they're detained, Superman realizes that Damian Wayne is driving an armored bat vehicle, so he swoops in expecting to find Bruce Wayne in there. He finds Batman, flies him up to the sky, demands answers, and Batman explains that basically the last 6 years of Batman major story arcs have actually been leading up to this point. The Court of Owls, he was given Electrum in the water. Dionysium was injected into him when he fought the Joker to the death. I didn't read that story. I'm not familiar with some of this. Prometheum, when he built this machine to bring him back to life, I guess. Okay, whatever. And then Nth Metal he was exposed to when he was building the contraption in the Prelude. And there's only one more material, and if they infect him with it, it'll open the doorway for this evil bat deity. Well, Superman sees through the ruse here, and we realize this is not Batman, this is somebody else. And Batman has escaped. Meanwhile, Kendra Hall, the head of the Blackhawks, Lady Blackhawk, as it were, and former Hawk Girl, is meeting with Vandal Savage and the Immortals, explaining that visions have started. Dr. Fate, John Henry Irons, who I thought was one of the Metal Men last issue, and Plastic Man are starting to see things and have experiences. Well, Vandal Savage is there with a whole bunch of different Immortals from the history of DC Comics. Phantom Stranger's in there, and Ra's al Ghul, and a few others like Morgaine, Great Wizard, etc. It's obvious that Ra's al Ghul is the one that knows him the best, so he figures out where Batman is by saying he would want to take on this creature by himself, and where would his impulse lead? Well, to do that, he'd have to go back to the beginning, so he's headed for the tomb of Prince Khufu, Hawkman's first incarnation, and there he meets up with Dream from the Sandman series. He is going to recover Hawkman's mace, and in his bag is not the nth metal, it's a baby version of Darkseid, because his theory is that Darkseid's Omega beams once unhooked him from the timeline and threw him back to the dawn of man, and that's when all of this started. So he thinks that having the mace and going back in time again, he can set everything right, even if it means erasing himself from existence. But the whole thing's a trap. It's actually the Tomb of Hath Set, and that is where they are attacked by these cultist guys of the Bat God and the Court of Owls, who have been planning this for a very long time. And we get the silliest name for the last substance. It's Batmanium, but it's all good cheese fun. And they begin chanting, and he's telling them to stop. That nope, it's too late. Batman is gone, and from the portal that is opened, a whole bunch of goblin-like Robins jump out and attack, killing the Court of Owls. Superman and Wonder Woman are subdued and apparently heavily injured. They look very gross and skeletal, and it's meant to imply that they're pretty close to being dead. And baby Darkseid's just sitting on the floor. And what do we have but a whole bunch of evil versions of Batman as the Bat Justice League? There's like a evil Batman Green Lantern, an evil Batman Flash, evil Batman Ares, Gimp Batman, a cyborg Batman, a Doomsday type Batman, female Aquaman Batman, and then this hooded cloaked figure behind. It's looking pretty bad. It's looking real bad for the heroes right now, and that's where the issue ends. So issue 3 is the Rise of the Dark Knights, and there are one-shots for each of the evil Batman to explain like their origins or whatever, and we are going to look at those too, because they do tie in. So bear with me as we go through these, because this is a really fun event. I gotta say, it's you know, it's not necessarily like a deep intellectual philosophical thing, but it's just fun. And how often do we see fun comics anymore? I hope you'll give it a chance. If you like DC Comics, you'll see a lot here, especially the old-time stuff. There seem to be tying a lot of things together from previous Batman stories and bringing in a lot of the older characters into the modern Rebirth series. So it should be pretty cool. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome back to Bad Comic Reviewed. Today we're looking at Batman the Red Death. This is a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in, and we start off seeing several planets trying to collide with each other, as if moving together in a sort of crisis, if you will. And that is where we learn that we are on Earth -52. Which is, of course, the Dark Multiverse. And we see the Flash running around, being chased by Batman. Batman is armed with the Rogues Gallery weapons. He's got Captain Cold's gun, Mirror Master's mirrors, etc. Now, Batman explains that his family is dead. He tried to be everywhere. Didn't work. That's when Batman explains that he needs the Speed Force. He's getting old and slow and can't save everybody that needs saved. That's when he knocks Flash out using a cryostasis formula created by Mr. Freeze. Barry wakes up on the hood of the Batmobile, which is now incorporated with a design from the Cosmic Treadmill in order to force Barry to give him the Speed Force. And what it does is really interesting. It merges them together. And Batman gets this really cool looking suit of armor with the big bat symbol on it, but it's red like the Flash. And he proceeds to go about slaughtering all of his enemies. Scarecrow, Riddler, Penguin, Man-Bat, etc. But he realizes he still can't stop what's coming. The world is breaking apart. He's just not fast enough. and a voice tells him that their world isn't meant to survive. It's not meant to last. The Barry half of him tries to talk him out of it, but it's too late. And then we cut over to Earth Zero, which is our prime superhero universe. And we have Iris talking to Blackface Wally. I don't know why Wally's black now. Wally and Iris get super old. Batman explains that there will be sacrifices. Apparently he can drain people's life force. And instead of like the electricity around him, like the Flash has, he has all these bats, which actually looks kind of cool. Bruce is about to kill him. Barry says, and I'm quoting here, "You're still my friend. If there's one thing I can count on, it's your compassion." And that gives Batman pause, the Red Death pause, I should say. And that gives Dr. Fate time to drag him through a Ankh portal, but it's pretty obvious that he's lost. Batman clearly has won the day, evil Batman rather, and a large bat symbol goes up on the Gotham of that negative world. It's real interesting that they explain a little bit more about how these planets come into being. It's formed by dark thoughts and dark desires, and it creates these evil universe planet versions of Earth. And they're not meant to last. So, since they're not meant to last, it pretty much is a predetermined catastrophe that awful things are going to happen. So it's kind of a depressing story. But it's a really good one-shot, and it really does kind of set up a little bit about the character. We get a little bit more of a sympathy for the Red Death, even though he is a corrupted version of Batman. It started out once being the Batman that we know. So that leads into Murder Machine issue 1, which is going to be the cyborg version of Batman. Should be pretty interesting. We'll look at that next. And we're going to look at a lot of these before we get back to issue 4 of Dark Knight's Metal, because they're all kind of connected, and these will provide a lot of context for the villains of that storyline. So I really like the art in this one, though. It was pretty good art. I was real impressed with that. The writer was Joshua Williamson. Art by Carmine Di Giando Mencio. I'm sure I butchered that name. I apologize. Colors by Ivan Plascini. Letters by Tom Napolitano. Tom Napolitano letters like everything. Good job all around. Fascinating story. Great one shot. I highly recommend picking it up. I know they're going to release all these in a trade paperback format, so you can always wait till then. So that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for supporting the channel. Be sure and hit like and subscribe so you won't miss another episode, and we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. In this episode we're looking at Batman the Murder Machine. It's a one-shot from DC Comics. This is written by Frank Thierry and James Tynion IV. Art by Riccardo Federici. Colorist Rain Berardo, something like that. Lettered by Tom Napolitano. Legendary letterer at this point. Covered by Jay Fabach with Brad Anderson. Alright, so let's get right into it. This story focuses on evil cyborg Batman. He shows up at the Watchtower while Victor's talking to his dad. As it happens, Victor's dad, of course, works at Star Labs. He's one of their head guys, so he's pretty safe there, in theory. And he wants to help solve the problem what's going on with the metals and the Justice League. But evil cyborg Batman shows up through the teleporter and immediately attacks Cyborg. Then we get a flashback to Earth -44, the dark multiverse, months ago, where a bunch of Batman's rogues gallery are attacking Alfred, and Bane kills him. And Batman's been watching the video over and over again, and it's actually super unhealthy, obviously, but the Justice League is there to try and get him to stop. They leave Batman for a minute to go upstairs, and he asks Victor to stay behind for a minute. Well, Victor Stone's a good friend, so he wanted to help. And as it happens, Bruce had scanned Alfred's brain a short time before during some other adventure, and he wants to recreate an artificial intelligence version of Alfred. Not like the weird Alfred headroom thing from Batman and Robin movie, because that was awful and stupid. This was actually pretty interesting, sort of AI, quasi-robot sort of thing. Construct of sorts. Turns out that version of Alfred multiplied himself, trying to protect Bruce Wayne, went and slaughtered all of his enemies, killed all the inmates at Arkham Asylum, and went on a rampage. Then it got into Batman himself, like rewired him, made him into a cyborg of sorts, or a straight up android, I'm not sure which. And it was all because of Victor's help programming this. So he ends up having to kill the entire Justice League who try and stop him. It's all done through flashback, and the cover is actually a pretty good indicator, I suppose, of what happened. They don't really go into graphic detail about it, but Cyborg was the last one to die, and now here on Earth Zero, they are fighting, and Cyborg just doesn't stand much of a chance at all, especially when most of the rest of the evil Dark Knights show up, and they just pummel him something serious, and it looks like he's pretty close to being dead, but evil Batman Cyborg got access to the computer and redid the Watchtower in this really creepy look. As far as the story goes, it was really well written. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a good story for an origin for evil Batman, and you can tell they're trying really hard to make these characters a little sympathetic because they knew their multiverses were dying. They'd all gone through tragic events and had horrible things happen to them. And I really like the art in here too. It was really good. It's a different style than I'm used to seeing. It's got more of a, I don't know, maybe a more European, like, high art type look. But it was really well done, and it really did work well for the book. So I'm hoping to see more of this artist, because I'd like to see what else they're capable of. And I thought they did a really good job with the action scenes. It's a pretty action-packed book. I mean, there's a lot of flashbacks, but there's also a lot of fighting between Cyborg and the Murder Machine. I recommend checking this out. It's not going to make a lot of sense without the Metal books, because it is a tie-in to Dark Knight's Metal. So if you haven't read Dark Knight's Metal, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's not a real heavy, deep story. It's just crazy fun. And this was really good tie-in to that. So if you're going to read Dark Knight's Metal, I highly recommend picking this one up. I thought it was really well done, and it provides a lot of context for one of the evil Dark Universe Batman. That's pretty much my assessment of it. I recommend it, especially if you're reading Dark Knight's Metal. It'll make more sense then. But that'll do it for this one. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Please be sure and hit like and subscribe so you don't miss any more episodes. And we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time I'm looking at Batman the Dawnbreaker. This is produced by DC Comics as part of the Dark Knight's Metal tie-ins. It is a one-shot. This was written by Sam Humphries with art by Ethan Van Sciver, colors by Jason Wright, and Tom Napolitano on letters. This starts off with the tragedy in Crime Alley, where Bruce Wayne has to watch his parents get murdered, and just after they are murdered, a Green Lantern ring appears. It has tracked him down to make him a Green Lantern of the sector, and he uses it to follow the unnamed gunman and murder him. He overrides with his grief and emptiness. He overrides the safety measures on the Green Lantern ring and pushes it into a dark place where there is no light, effectively reversing its power and making it a negative evil thing. And he can't resurrect his parents, but his grief is what's controlling him. So as we go through the book, he is hunting down criminals and murdering them, like viciously murdering them. And he has no compunction about who he murders. It's not just criminals, it's anybody that questions him. If you've ever seen the Twilight Zone episode where the kid sends people to the cornfield, it's kinda like that. So he murdered Detective Bullock, he goes after Gordon, he kills most of the Green Lantern Corps with this evil darkness that's infecting him and his ring. And it's really just grief and loneliness that driven him to this, and he becomes the Dawnbreaker Batman. But then as he becomes this evil version of Batman, officially not just a corrupted Green Lantern, darkness invades his world and takes it over. And that's when the Batman Who Laughs shows up with the Red Death and Murder Machine and it recruits him. Now, all the pictures I've seen of this version of Batman make him look older or kind of zombified, but Ethan Van Sciver does a much better job making him look like a younger man, because he is fairly young in this. Well then, because he joined up with the Dark Knights, he ends up in Coast City, where Green Lantern tries to stop him, but his ring doesn't recognize the darkness. It just says there is no light, and he gets sucked into the darkness. Thankfully, Dr. Fate manages to nab him, and just in time, but Coast City is on its own against this psychotic evil Batman. It's actually a very compelling story. It's very dark, it's a very horrific version of Batman, but that's the point. But it's also very tragic, because this version of Batman really has lost everything, and he kind of lost his mind, but he wasn't able to focus it in a way that helps people, like the actual Batman of Earth Zero. So in this negative 32 Earth, he becomes evil through grief and suffering that he's never been able to process in a healthy way. Not that Batman actually processed it in a super healthy way, but much healthier than this. So this is a really good one. I really like Ethan Van Sciver's art. I've never seen too much of it. I remember various issues through the years, but I guess he's the Hal Jordan and Green Lantern artist. I may have to start picking that book up because I really like the way he draws. So I was real impressed with that. A lot of little details that really kind of caught my eye. He really gets down to like rubble and stuff like that. Really good detailing, and I really appreciate that. Definitely got to look up some more of his work. I'll track down some Hal Jordan issues to look through. But yeah, I highly recommend this for nothing else than the art, but the story was really good, and it really does, like I said, these one-shots are proven time and again to really add to the story of Dark Knight's Metal. So I recommend checking this one out. I thought it was a lot of fun. And all around a good book. Great art, good story. It's a pretty solid one-shot, and it really gives a lot of backstory to these villains. Be sure and hit like, share, and subscribe. And as always, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. We hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Batman the Drowned. This is another Dark Knight's Metal one-shot tie-in. Ties into the main miniseries. And this one focuses on Bryce Wayne, a female version of Batman from an alternate universe, the Dark Multiverse as it were. And she is attacking Amnesty Bay. Now, Amnesty Bay is sort of Aquaman's hangout, and she hails from Earth -11 in the Dark Multiverse, where she lost her love, Sylvester Kyle, who is a male version of Catwoman, obviously. And when she encountered the Atlanteans, she realized that they were monsters just like the people who had taken her lover. So she kills them the same way she killed all the metas on her Earth. Then the war that claimed the Atlanteans drowned the world, and she had altered herself physically to fight them under the water. And she has minions called Dark Water, which are sort of underwater zombies. And her world was clearly dying, but the Batman Who Laughs showed up, spoke with the calm and reassuring voice, and pulled her with him into the war against the Light Universe, which they all blame for their miseries. So she's fighting Arthur and Mara, and she corrupts the Queen of Atlantis. Aquaman, just before he is killed by his own wife, is pulled through an Ankh by Dr. Fate, and she says that she's glad he's alive because now he can know suffering, and she is going to drown the whole world, as she has done with Amnesty Bay. And she sends her signal up, which is sort of a compass with a bat symbol on top of it. This was a really good issue. It was another good telling of an origin story for one of these corrupted Batmen. It's even titled Rime of the Ancient Mariner. It's written by Dan Abnett, with art by Philip Tan and Tyler Kirkham, with colors by Dean White and Arif Prianto, letters by Tom Napolitano. Jason Fabuk, Brad Anderson did the cover. Jessica Chen was the associate editor. I'd have to say the art's pretty good. It's pretty solid, and the story was real good. It was a bit of a downer, like all these seem to be. We get another glimpse at an alternate reality Batman, this time with gender swaps, and she talks about redistribution of the wealth by drowning a city, which is probably a metaphor in there, but don't want to get into that. It was a good book. I thought it was solid, so I'd recommend this one. I thought it was fun. I liked the art. The story was solid. There's not much more to say than that, so I'm going to wrap it up there. I highly recommend getting these supplements if you're going to read the Dark Knights storyline for Metal. They really do add to it quite a bit. So that'll do it for this episode. As always, be sure and hit like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. It's time for me to review something else very poorly. And today we are looking at Batman the Merciless. This is a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in, focusing on the evil Batman who has obtained the power of Ares. Now the book starts off with a bunch of the world leaders of secret organizations like the DEO, Shade, Task Force X, etc. And they're all sitting around trying to figure out what to do. And Steve Trevor and General Lane are arguing about necessary measures. Lane wants to drop a super bomb called the Hella that could supposedly kill Superman. And that's when Batman the Merciless / Ares shows up and makes them fight amongst themselves, starts slaughtering people. Everybody loses their mind. Well, how did Batman get to this point? Well, on Earth -12, he had scooped up the helmet of Ares, thinking Wonder Woman was dead, and Ares was about to be victorious. He took the helmet up and killed Ares, and went on a rampage. He cut his way through the entire planet, killing even up to the gods, and that's when Batman Who Laughs showed up to explain to him that his planet was doomed, and the helmet would tell him that he would have recognized the symbols if he had listened to it, but he didn't. But he realized that this evil Batman was correct, so he signed on. Now, when he came through the portal with the other ones, he didn't want to look at Wonder Woman, so he looked at Superman instead before wandering off to find a secret tomb underneath where they were that chronicled this Earth Zero's Batman and the mantling of him to become the doorway for this evil bat deity that is leading the Batman. The heroes drop the bomb, and it does nothing because it just feeds him. We see him sitting on a throne with a bunch of people surrounding him, and they're actually the leaders of these organizations, and they are worshiping him. And he grabs Steve Trevor by the neck and lifts him up, and that's when we learn some of the other atrocities this Batman did that I'm not going to share because you should read this. This was actually a really good issue. It was written by Peter Tomasi, and the artist was Francis Manipal. Tom Napolitano on letters, Jay Fabuk and Brad Anderson did the cover, and it was a lot of fun. It was a good story. It was real downer like the other ones. Sad fall from grace, but the brutality and just callousness this Batman shows is kind of beyond compare. I would recommend this one if you're reading Dark Knight's Metal. All of these have been really good so far. This one's probably one of the better ones, but it's hard to tell. They're all good in their own way, and they have very good writers and artists on these. The interior art really wasn't my style, but it's quality work, so I'm not going to say it was bad or anything. So if you get a chance, pick this up. If you're reading Dark Knight's Metal, it'll help make a little more sense for the story, and it'll give some context to the evil Batman. Be sure and check it out if you get a chance. Otherwise, that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Batman the Devastator. This is a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in, and this is the Doomsday Batman. This is brought to us by Frank Thierry, plot, James Tinian words, Tony Daniel on pencils, Danny Miki inks, Tomiyu Mori on colors, Tom Napolitano letters, and the cover by Jason Fabok and Brad Anderson. Now we start off with Lobo fighting the Batman Devastator near the Fortress of Solitude. The evil Batman is trying to recover the Cosmic Tunic. The evil Batman is trying to recover the Cosmic Tuning Fork that Earth Zero Batman had hidden underneath the Fortress of Solitude. Now that's what the Anti-Monitor used in Crisis on Infinite Earths, so it kind of ties back to some older stuff. Lobo, who looks a lot like Lemmy, gets thrown far away. Then we jump over to the Daily Planet, where Lois and Jimmy are talking. Bruce shows up and shakes her hand, and then suddenly transforms into the Doomsday version of Batman. And we've got a backstory jump there, where we get a lot more information that Earth -1's Metropolis was destroyed by Superman, who had been corrupted. They never figured out how or what happened, but Batman had to use the Doomsday virus, a variation of it, to take down Superman, and unfortunately he had to kill him. And he mutated the city, or started to, but it was too late. The planet was ending, because that's how the multiverse planets seem to go, is after a certain point, after some nightmare scenario, they just kind of die out. Well, that's when the Batman Who Laughs showed up and explained what was going on, and that Superman was creating a false sense of happiness and hope in Earth Zero, and this Devastator Batman knew that to be a lie, so he was willing to go help destroy that Superman. We cut back to Earth Zero. Kara, Superwoman, Red, I missed that storyline, and Guardian have shown up to try and fight Batman Devastator, but it's probably a little too late. They don't really resolve that, but we have to assume that they're probably not alive anymore. Lois has been infected with the Doomsday virus, as has a lot of people in the city, so she manages to get back to the family apartment, drag John into a safe panic room, where she locks him in before she begins to mutate. Then we jump forward a little bit. Devastator Batman taking the cosmic tuning fork to Challenger Mountain in Gotham City, and that's pretty much the end of the story. Now, I've kept it pretty simplistic for a reason. It's a very straightforward story, first of all. Second of all, telling you too much, I would have to basically narrate the whole book, because the book is mainly a narration story. It's somebody telling you something, and events are happening as kind of a visual filler, if you will. It's very well done, and it's a very interesting story of a very evil Batman, and it adds a lot of material to the main Dark Knight's Metal storyline. Like, we are now understanding not only the background of this character, but he's also doing something. He's retrieving the tuning fork antenna and taking it to Gotham. So we're gonna find, if we see that in the Dark Knight's Metal tie-in, which I haven't read issue 4 yet, then we'll know why it's there and how it got there. And we also learn more about what's happening to Metropolis. Overall, a real fun book. The art's good. The action is very good. There's a lot of good angles in here. It's not flat and boring like too many comics are now. I recommend checking this out. All these one-shots are great tie-ins to Dark Knight's Metal. A lot of times they release these and they're garbage and they're completely useless, but they're just trying to trick you into thinking they're going to tie in. These actually do provide a lot of information about the background of the villains and what's going on in the world around them. But this one also explains how the tuning fork antenna gets to Gotham. And like I said in previous episodes, I know they're reprinting these in trade paperback before too long, so the price may go down on these. You might be able to pick them up for $1 or $2, but I highly recommend picking them up. I think they're a lot of fun and they tie in really well. So, and like I said, the art is really solid, the writing's good, overall a good book. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at The Batman Who Laughs. This is the last of the one-shot tie-ins to Dark Knight's Metal, and this one is of course about the Batman Who Laughs. Now, we've seen glimpses of him throughout the first 3 issues of Dark Knight's Metal and all the one-shots, and now we learn his origin. He was once Batman, Bruce Wayne, and he was taken down by the Joker, and the Joker murdered Gordon and a bunch of other people, and then he guns down a family right in front of Batman, turns the surviving child into a Joker spawn. This makes Batman snap. Batman kills him. It's pretty brutal, but a gas is released out of the Joker that Batman inhales. Apparently the Joker did this to several other children, creating little Jokers. Those become the ghoulish Robins that we've seen. Now the Bat family is gathered together and Batman explains the situation, but they think they're there to help, and actually they're there for him to gun them all down. Then he kills the Justice League and forces Clark to do some pretty sinister stuff using some modified black kryptonite, and it's all off panel, but it is pretty horrific. And that's when we realize that the evil Joker has basically killed everybody that's come up against him, and the evil bat deity comes to him and says, your world's about to end. Like all these other dark worlds, they just fall apart, so if you want to survive, come with me. And he shows him all these good planets that are still in the light that he can destroy. And we also learn that there are other nightmarish versions of the other superheroes that are waiting to come through. So we see like a Parasite Superman, a Darkseid Superman, and a couple alien Green Lanterns, a corrupted Dr. Fate, the Flash with like spider legs, all sorts of evil looking versions of the other heroes. And that's what they're planning to do, is invade the positive multiverse from the dark multiverse with all these evil versions of the heroes. So this ties directly into issue 4 of Dark Knight's Metal, and I'm excited to read it. This was a very disturbing book. It's very dark. If you're not ready for that sort of thing, you may want to skip this one. This was written by James Tynion IV with writing Riley Rosmo, artist, Ivan Pleskenia, colors, Tom Napolitano on letters, Jason Fabok and Brad Anderson did the cover. Now, I thought the cover was good. The interior art is very stylistic. Not really the type of art I prefer, but I can see why people like it. So I think there'll be a lot of people that do like it because it's got a lot of good pencil work, but it's just not a style I prefer. Overall, a really well done book that ties in with more background information on the last of the Dark Knights. So if you're reading metal, you'll want to pick these up and check it out. I think it's a good addition to the series. So if you're reading Dark Knights Metal, I recommend getting these. They are reprinting them later in trade paperback format, I think in the next few months. Look for that if you don't want to track down the individual issues. I tend to prefer individual issues. With that being said, that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Knights Metal. We start off with what looks like a simplistic scene in Smallville, Kansas, where two boys are playing guitar for their family and friends. Well, family mostly, and Diana. And Batman's like trying to say thank you or something. It's super awkward because he doesn't do that sort of thing. Then suddenly he starts bleeding from the chest. And then a giant hand shoots out and grabs Clark Kent. And then we see the Bat Deity guy who's on the cover of this issue who looks super creepy. And then the writers show up, the Dark Knights, and they start causing all sorts of problems. And that's when Wonder Woman tries to wake him up, and Superman is having a nightmare. He is on this tower in Metropolis full of bodies. Man, I don't know why anybody would want to live in this universe. We see all these doomsday type creatures down below, and they're infected. Superman finds out his son is safe, but Lois was infected, and he gets really mad and flies off to confront the Bat Deity. But in fact, there are all these like skeletal looking people wandering around on this tower, and these like Joker-headed serpents. It's pretty crazy looking. Superman goes looking for Batman. He thinks he sees him, but it is the Doomsday version. Thankfully, Superman crashes into Gotham City in some snow, but that's where he sees the Batman who laughs, and we find out that the city's been divided up and given to Mr. Freeze. Superman's been out of commission for a week on this tower, reliving lifetimes worth of experiences where he fights this bat thing and loses. Then Superman is attacked again, and thankfully the Flash snaps him up and takes him to the Oblivion Bar, which is this little pocket universe thing, and it's the only safe space. There's some other heroes there. We've got Kendra, we've got Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, Detective Bobo, and Nightwing, who looks like crap. And we learn a little bit about what's going on, what the different creatures have done. Then Green Arrow shows up with Damian Wayne, and we learn that they have figured out, apparently this happened in some issues of Green Arrow where they discover that nth metal will actually hurt these creatures. So they have to go on a quest for the remaining nth metal, and they only have a few items that can help them get there. John Henry Irons, better known as Steel, his hammer has nth metal in it. Dr. Fate's helmet does, and Plastic Man can also find it. They find these 4 signals coming in, and 3 of them are nth metal, one's probably Batman. Superman wants to go rescue Batman. Nightwing and the others say it's a bad idea. We have to fight here and save the universe that we can. That's what Batman would want. Damian hits Dick Grayson for that one. But before their argument can continue too much further, they are attacked by one of the Joker-looking Robins, and we find Deathstroke has arrived at the scene. He's the last one, and the bad guys are coming, so they have to split up. So Superman makes the choice that he's going to go after Batman while the other heroes go look for nth metal. So they break off, and Detective Chimp stays behind with Nightmaster, the proprietor of the bar, and they're going to try and delay the bad guys as long as possible. It's not real good. So we find Wonder Woman with Kendra and Dr. Fate in the sands of Balaya, where they're going for the entrance to the Rock of Eternity. Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific are taking the Plastic Man egg into space to look for Thanagar. In the Mariana Trench, we have Deathstroke and Aquaman looking for a place that not only is like a sin to Aquaman according to him, but it will likely destroy all of Atlantis. Then at the Fortress of Solitude, Superman, the Flash, and Steel are at the machine that we saw in issue 1, and that is actually the Anti-Monitor's device. It's an antenna that the Anti-Monitor used in Crisis on Infinite Earths. So Steel buckles himself in into the machine so that he can use it as a conduit through the nth metal in his armor and hammer. And they are going to cast a projection from the Phantom Zone projector, which I haven't seen in ages, and it looks just like the Silver Age version. There's a little bit of pseudoscience here. They're assuming that the Phantom Zone is actually a membrane of sorts on the edge of the dark multiverse. So by using the hammer, they can use the antenna to focus the energy of the nth metal and open a portal to this other world, to the dark multiverse. Meanwhile, the evil Batmen are in the Oblivion bar and it's burning down. We see Nightmaster didn't make it. We don't see Detective Chimp. But then Superman breaks through and discovers that he walked right into a trap, and that the warning he thought he heard from the distress signal from Batman was actually a trap. He was actually sending the exact opposite, but they missed it, and now Superman is part of an all Superman looking generator, and that's how the issue ends. Now so far this is probably the weakest issue, but it's still not bad. It's still really fun. It was a little bit full of forced plot devices, but it's a fun story. I'm excited to see where it goes. We're going to look at a couple of supplements before we get to issue 4. We're going to look at a couple of the one-shots for the evil Batman, and I also have Batman Lost, a metal tie-in, and it kind of tells the story what Batman's been up to during this, between issues 3 and 4. Overall, good story. Little weak compared to the other issues. It mostly just involves like plot devices. There's not a lot of recapping, and it really doesn't have the time for it, quite honestly. The pacing is just it's not suited to inserting a bunch of backstory. But overall, fun issue. And I did like the art. Scott Snyder seems to be doing a pretty good job with this, so hopefully it'll pay off. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. We hope to see you on the next episode. Hello everyone and welcome back. Today on Bad Comic Review, we're looking at Batman Lost. This is a one-shot, ties into the Dark Knight's Metal series, and this is a very complex book to describe. So it starts out with old man Bruce Wayne talking to a little girl that's supposed to be his granddaughter, and she wants him to tell a story about Batman. She picks one out of the bookshelf, and it's his first case, and he's even got the purple gloves. Old school. So the story goes and then jumps, like we learn a little bit, then it jumps to Batman back in time, and he sees a tribe of people with bat armor fighting people with hawk armor or bird armor, and we can see that one of them is Hath Set, 2 of the birds are Hawkman and Hawkgirl. And then we learn a little bit about this third area where Batman is in like a post-apocalyptic future, and he sees a bunch of ragtag misfits wearing like Batman symbols, and then they are mowed down by a Hawk Patrol led by Damian Wayne. Then we're back at the first case, but he's figuring something's not right, and he climbs down this ladder, which leads him to an ancestor of his that helped found Gotham that's about to sacrifice this girl to the Bat God, and the room's on fire, and that's when he's like, alright, I've had enough of this. And then he's in a weird post-apocalyptic type future where Joker runs Gotham City and has people dress up like Batman to be hunted by locals. And then he's back at the first case again, and then he's seeing through Alan Wayne's eyes that the metal in the buildings is somehow tainted, so they've done something to his city. Then he's attacked by the Court of Owls. Then he's in the 1920s in a bathrobe, and he glimpses Wonder Woman, and then he falls down a manhole. And then he's in outer space, and he's hanging out with Harley Quinn. Now this is actually a tie-in to a book that's coming out. I think it's called No Justice. That's like a little teaser for that, although they don't tell you that. And then we're back to the first case again, and Batman is starting to figure out something's not right, and he finds a secret passage. And then we're back at old man Wayne, and the little girl's like by now figured out that he knows something's not right, so she crawls up the wall and has demon eyes, and that's when he sees out the window a reflection of his that is actually this evil bat supposed god, and he jumps through the window and comes face to face with the actual creature, and he catches glimpses of these evil Batmen that are attacking his universe. This guy has assembled like the darkest versions of Batman from their respective universes. It explains how he forged Batman to basically become a doorway to conquer Batman's Earth with these evil Batmen. And it effectively breaks Batman that this is happening. So he's back in the comfortable delusion reading a story to his grandkid. Now, this story is a bit confusing if you just read this book. That's why I can't really give a lot of description for it. I'm just kind of giving you a little recap. But if you're reading the Dark Knight's Metal books and the Preludes, this makes a lot more sense. This issue takes place between Metal 3 and Metal issue 4. If you read the solo one-shots for each of these evil Batmen, like Batman the Red Death is where he's got the powers of the Flash, those will make more sense because of this. It explains how Batman is on the wall of the human tower at the end of Dark Knight's Metal 3. When he encounters Superman, this actually has some logical sense to it. So yeah, it ties in really well with the Dark Knight's Metal storyline, and honestly, I think this really kind of helps out to establish what's going on with Batman during this time. If you're going to read Dark Knight's Metal, if you're going to get the whole run, I would definitely recommend this one. The one-shots of the evil Batman, you could probably enjoy the story without. This really does add a little bit more to the story of, what's going on with Batman. And it ties into some really old stuff too from 5 or 10 years ago, like where Batman was lost in time, which was, okay, that was a little silly. And some of the other old storylines, like Batman's first case where he's got the purple gloves, that sort of thing. It's an interesting issue. I have to say that I actually enjoyed this quite a bit. I thought it was pretty good, and it was a nice add-on to the Dark Knight's Metal. And the art's good, the writing's good. It was a fun issue, just like the rest of Dark Knight's Metal's been so far. It was fun, and that's something we don't see much of in comics. Thank you as always for listening. We're going to wrap it up there, and hit like and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we're looking at Dark Knight's Metal issue 4. Now, a lot happens in this issue. So we start off with Batman about to be escorted by 2 evil Supermen. They're going to drag him down into a bad place. But thankfully he manages to grab a gauntlet off this evil Superman, and he recognizes it as one of his weapons. And he's able to grab his Superman, and call on Dream to take them somewhere safe. Meanwhile, Dr. Fate, Wonder Woman, and Kendra Saunders are fighting the 7 deadly sins at the Rock of Eternity. Now, obviously they should be being welcomed, but they're not because the statues know something they don't. And down in Atlantis, Deathstroke and Aquaman are at the tomb of Arion, who was the first king of Atlantis. Then on Thanagar Prime, Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific go to make a deal for some nth metal, but it turns out that Onimar Sin is the ruler there now, and he has eaten all the nth metal. And he is aided by his new friend, Starro the Conqueror, who sounds like that guy at the gym that makes fun of you for not lifting enough weights. Sounds like him. Very Broheim kind of speaking patterns. Very kind of unsettling and annoying. And Starro is keeping Green Lantern from using his ring, so they are imprisoned. Meanwhile, the Sandman has saved Batman and Superman and takes them to Lucian's library in the Dreaming and tells them an origin story, a fable if you will, about a monitor and an anti-monitor and a dragon that was at the World Forge where this third large creature was tasked with creating new worlds, and the dragon would eat the ones that didn't work out and they would be destroyed. Barbados was the dragon originally, but it killed its master and has decided to conquer everything. So Batman and Superman are sent on a mission to go to the World Forge to try and make sure that there is still some hope there. Meanwhile, everybody else is having a bad day. Aquaman and Deathstroke end up in another dimension where they don't know where they're going. Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific are trapped in a cell. And it turns out Kendra's got some sinister plan of her own to throw the astral brain of the Anti-Monitor into this passage to the multiverse, and it might actually destroy everything. Just when they're about to stop her, she transforms into this horrifically evil-looking creature that calls herself Lady Blackhawk, and Dr. Fate's about to do something but is zapped by Black Adam, and it looks like Fate is gone. It's just his helmet sitting there smoldering, which really is bad for the good guys, because Dr. Fate's very powerful. Meanwhile, Superman and Batman find some bad news when they find Carter Hall and what's happened to him. It is not pretty, and that's where the issue ends. Things are looking pretty grim for the heroes. As usual, this is a good issue. It's very fun. It's not a real deep issue. This is probably the most in-depth story part of it, but Scott Snyder's doing a pretty fun job. Greg Capullo's doing a pretty decent job on art. I think it's a fun series. It's not heavy intellectualism. There is a little bit of world building here, but it's all done for the goal of wrapping up the series. It's only a 6-issue series. The next story is Hawkman Found, where we're going to learn what happened to Hawkman, and then we'll get to issue 5. We got Black Adam back. We've got the Thangarians, all their shenanigans. Starro's back, although I don't like the personality they're giving him. And Sin is back, and there's lots of references in here for old school fans to kind of get excited about. So we might be seeing some old characters return that have been missing for a decade or two. But in the meantime, this is definitely a recommend, and that's going to wrap this episode up. Hopefully the series continues to be good, and I would say definitely pick this up if you get a chance. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Be sure and hit like, share, and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. This time we are looking at Hawkman Found Issue 1. This is from DC Comics and takes place between Dark Knight's Metal Issue 4 and Issue 5. Now, obviously it's a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in. This is the story of Hawkman's inner struggle with himself as he works on the World Forge. It's trying to be very poetic about his struggle with his past lives and the Hawkman side of him and what's going on at the Forge, but because of that it makes it kind of difficult to explain it. Just mostly he's trying to remember, but every time he gets close to the sky he falls back, and it's a metaphor for him losing control over his own life, or lives I should say, as he works on the World Forge in the darkness. That's pretty much the entire issue. It's trying to be deep and philosophical, but it's really a very artsy book. It's well done, it's just nothing really happens. Now this is written by Jeff Lemire with pencils by Brian Hitch. Kevin Nolan inks, Alex Sinclair and Jeremiah Skipper on colors. Clayton Cowles did the letters. Liam Sharp and Jason Wright did the cover. Now I do like the cover picture, it's really cool looking. The interior art is really nice. The hawk creatures that attack him every day look really cool. Everything looks good, solid art. Otherwise, there's not much I can say about it because it is just kind of an artsy, navel-gazing story about Hawkman's internal struggle. It's well done, it's just kind of no real resolution because it's part of a greater story. And if you read this by yourself, you'd wonder what the heck is going on. So without knowing that it's a Dark Knight's Metal tie-in or what's going on with Dark Knight's Metal 4, you would have no clue of what the ending means. All in all, it's an interesting story. I'm glad they're bringing Hawkman back. I like him. I like most of the Justice Society, so I'm hoping they'll come back at some point. There's not a lot I could say about it. It's a fun read, but it's really not necessary. It doesn't really add a lot to the mythos of the Dark Knight storyline for Metal, so you could do without it. If you're a big Hawkman fan like me, then yeah, it'd be worth picking up. It's more like a poetic book than an adventure book. I'm gonna leave it at that. Sorry this is a short one, but thank you as always for watching. Don't forget to hit the like, the share, and the subscribe buttons, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we're looking at Dark Knight's Metal Issue 5. Now things are looking pretty grim for our heroes as the evil bat deity begins his wail to unleash his hordes of minions and other dark entities onto the earth. Batman and Superman are trying to talk some sense into Hawkman, but it appears to be too late for him, so they have to go down into the World Forge, and it's a grim possibility that they're not going to succeed. Aquaman and Deathstroke have made it to the center of the earth, where some Atlantean machinery is keeping this orb thing at the core encased for some reason, but it's got nth metal in it. The only upside is that there is some hope with Green Lantern and Mr. Terrific when an old friend shows up to release them and sneak them out, and they have to fight Starro and Sin. Now Wonder Woman is taking on Black Adam, but things don't look too good when she has to fight him and Hawkwoman, or Hawkgirl. She does find the mace, but at what cost? Because a shot to the head takes the mace into the hands of some sinister enemies. And Black Manta shows up just to be a jerk and sell out everyone on Earth. And just when Mr. Terrific, Green Lantern, and their old friend think they have a chance of saving the Earth, the Dark Knights show up and tell them that it's a little too late, and they take control of the weapon. Thankfully, Wonder Woman is able to knock Hawkgirl back into reality with the magic lasso, but it's too late. The hordes of evil superheroes are coming out of the ground, and it's just Wonder Woman and Hawkgirl, and they don't stand much of a chance. And the issue ends with a very, very good possibility they're not going to survive this. So I am actually super intrigued at what's going to happen next. It does cross over into another one-shot called The Wild Hunt. It's Dark Knights Rising. Dark Knights Metal 5 was a great issue. I highly recommend this series. It's so much fun. There's actually a sense of peril. We don't know what's going to happen. It's not going to be a classic, I don't think, but it's definitely going to be a fun one that I'll want to reread. I am going to recommend this one, of course. Dark Knights Metal 6 is supposed to be out next week on the 26th of March. I'm hoping to pick that up as soon as it comes out and review it that night. I would definitely recommend picking up this series and getting caught up before issue 6 comes out. It's a fun mini-series. If you're familiar at all with the DC universe, you'll probably have some fun reading it. I thought it was a great book. Art's good, the writing's good, and it's hard to find a good comic that's fun these days. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next episode. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Knights Rising, The Wild Hunt. This is of course a Dark Knights Metal tie-in, and this one starts out with Detective Chimp, Bobo, revealing his secret identity as Bobo. He is having a flashback to his time in the circus, where he was an abused animal, but he had a friend named Fred, was where he got his hat from, that was the only person that was nice to him. Well, Fred let him escape as he lay dying. Bobo ran into the swamplands, where Swamp Thing saved him, and he stumbled across the Fountain of Youth, where he was given immortality and a super intellect, and he became Detective Chimp. Well, he's trying to unravel a device that's supposed to be helping Flash, Cyborg, and Raven find the Hall of Heroes. Now, if you don't know what the Hall of Heroes is, that goes way back to the DC Crisis for Infinite Earths. It's an orbiting space platform in bleed space between universes. It was originally used by the Monitors, and that's kind of how they were able to oversee the multiverse. Well, when the Crisis on Infinite Earth happened, everything kind of went to crap. And we haven't really heard much about it since then, so this was a real big throwback for the old school fans. And we've got Red Tornado in this one, we've got the Metal Men, we've got Dr. T. Morrow, we've got Will Magnus, we even see Dr. Savannah, and a couple other famous heroes and villains floating around in this issue. On the Ultima Thule, in the multiversal bleed, we have Raven, Flash, and Cyborg trying to get to the Hall of Heroes because they think that they're supposed to go there. Well, they're being chased by the evil Batman, and they're using a engine with baby universes that are trapped inside like this as an energy source. Pretty crazy. Well, we're starting to see some divisions and second thoughts by the evil Batman, who are expressing various concerns at this point, at least on a minor scale. Well, Barry manages to get onto their ship and reverse the polarity of their engine, which blows it up, and also cures one of the evil Batman and makes him good. So we see one convert to the good guy team and betray his compadres at his own peril. So with one less villain, we jump back over to Detective Chimp, whose super intellect is fading, and he's figuring out that whatever is going on was pre-planned, and that this might actually be a trap. So he frees Red Tornado from the machine that he's hooked up to, and he tells him the same thing, that it is indeed a trap, and Detective Chimp was right. Well, it's too late. The ship is about to crash into the Hall of Heroes. Barry, Cyborg, and Raven are coming to the same conclusion, that there's something crazy going on, and that they may be way too late. But thankfully, there is an incredibly unexpected turn of events, and help is on the way from the last place you would think. And It's a real good throwback. Honestly, to get the reference, you had to have really been paying attention to some old DC annuals a while back, and it's outstanding. I laughed for about 5 minutes when I saw it. This was a great issue. I highly recommend, if you're reading Dark Knight's Metal, pick this one up. And read it before you read issue 6. It takes place between issues 5 and 6, and it is phenomenal addition if you're an old school fan. So you'll get a kick out of it. It's a lot of fun, and it really does tie in well. This should have been the 6th issue, and issue 6 should have been issue 7, because this really brings it all together. And you do see a little bit more of the Dark Knights, and you see how one of them turns teams. All around a fantastic issue that I highly recommend. It was just, it was sheer fun to go through this one. I had a great time with it, and cast of people working on this issue is absolutely fantastic. You had Scott Snyder, Grant Morrison, James Tynion IV, and Joshua Williamson. Art by Howard Porter, George Ramirez, Doug Mankey with Jamie Mendoza. Colors by Hi-Fi, Alejandro Sanchez, and Will Quintana. Clayton Cowles did letters. Doug Mankey and Will Quintana did cover. I think DC's doing a lot of great stuff. I hope they can keep it up. But this Dark Knights series has been really getting me to buy more DC books. And whatever they're doing to trick me into buying stuff, it's working. So I cannot recommend this one enough. If you're reading Dark Knight's Metal, definitely read this one too. If you're not reading Dark Knight's Metal, have some fun and pick it up. Issue 6 comes out, I believe, on the 28th. So be sure and look for it, or at least get the trade paperbacks. I'm probably going to get the trade even though I own the individual issues, just to help support books that I like. That'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for watching and supporting the channel. Be sure and hit like, share, and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next one. Hello and welcome to another Bad Comic Review. Today we are looking at Dark Knight's Metal issue 6. This is the final issue of the miniseries. This issue starts with Kendra Saunders and Wonder Woman fighting their way through the hordes of evil versions of the Justice League. Now, Wonder Woman has to wake up the others who've been captured, and they're able to get Plastic Man to wake up for a moment in order to save everyone and clear a path so that Wonder Woman can get to this opening. Now, this sort of contradicts what happened in the Terrifics issue 1 a little bit, but maybe not as much as I thought initially. But it was a cool scene either way. It's good to see Plastic Man helping out the team. So Wonder Woman has to dive down into the pit to find Superman and Batman, and there she encounters Hawkman, who was corrupted. Barbatos strikes down Hawkman when it looks like he might be waking up, but thankfully some backup arrives in the form of Cyborg and Flash on the Thule with a whole bunch of alternate universe Batmans. Then we have Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman flying up in special armor made out of 10th metal, and that gives them the ability to fight these evil creatures, and they help the other Justice League members get it. Now, I'm reminded of Total Justice, which I did review on this channel. There was a 3-issue series called Total Justice. It was part of a Kenner toy line where all the heroes in it had armor that was special made for them, and it was mostly the same characters. And it reminded me of that quite a bit, honestly. But this armor lets them fight the evil Dark Knights and the other evil creatures. Then Hawkman takes a shot at Barbados, whatever his name is. Barbados. I keep wanting to say Barbados. Maybe I need a vacation. Well, the Batman Who Laughs is about to unleash his evil final plan for his bat deity with the help of his masked prisoner, and it's not who you think it is. I know it wasn't who I thought it was, and if you actually got this right, well, but you probably have way more DC history than is healthy to have. Well, Batman has an ace up his sleeve because he knows the armor won't help down there, and he manages to get himself shot, but the Batman Who Laughs also doesn't expect Batman to have this ace up his sleeve, or should I say a Joker. Well, needless to say, things go the way they go. Things go the way they have to go, and Batman and the others reach out with metal through a kind of a MacGuffin and connect with everybody in the world and try and spark hope again and lift the Earth up out of the dark multiverse back to where it's supposed to be. Well, in doing so, they accidentally break the source wall. It's a New Gods thing. It's very convoluted, and it changes all the time. But thankfully the universe is saved, but they may have opened up themselves to something even darker, a greater universe or multiverse that lies beyond the source wall, and the source wall may have actually been protecting them. But they have a party, and we learn that Hawkman is back, and he's back to what he normally looks like, and we get glimpses of the offshoot characters like the Immortal Men and Sideways and things like that. And there are other ramifications, the Dark Pantheon, the Dark Stars, there's a hint of the Flash War, and they hint at the No Justice storyline that's coming up for Justice League, and we get a glimpse of Swamp Thing wearing a tie for some stupid reason. Apparently, like, everybody on the planet knows Batman's secret identity. And then we get a nice little teaser with a picture of the Hall of Justice, which I'm glad they are bringing that back, because it's just cool. We did get a glimpse of the Legion of Doom headquarters previously, so there are a lot of things I think that they glossed over heavily. Power of Shazam and the Rock of Eternity. They really didn't go into great detail about that. We saw Dr. Fate back in action, although it looked like he had been disintegrated last issue. But I can kind of live with the more nitpicky flaws. I think the issue would have been better as having a 7th issue instead of wrapping up. This issue felt very rushed. It was still very fun. I'd still recommend it. Was the payoff quite what I expected? Not really. It really didn't feel like the payoff was entirely satisfactory. It really felt like they were just setting us up for another event. But overall, I did like it. I thought it was fun. And unfortunately, I think they're going to drag out some of these characters for way too long. A few of the Dark Knights are probably going to pop up here and there. It looked like some of them had been killed, but they were probably just incapacitated, so we can see them for the next 15 years and they can prove to be annoyingly oversaturated. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this issue. It was an okay ending, just not what I wanted. I don't think they wrapped it up in as neat of a bow as it could have had if they had had a few more issues to really go into detail. That's just the way I thought about it. But that'll do it for this episode. As always, thank you so much for listening and supporting the channel. Please be sure and hit like and subscribe, and we hope to see you on the next one.